Hello everyone. How's it going? I am back, and that is the scariest sentence you can ever hear someone say, I feel. But on a serious note, yes, I am back. I already had two sessions today, UK time. Okay, one in the morning, 6 a.m. One in like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. UK time. Then what 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. UK time, and I'm back on the same day, at least in the UK, at 8 p.m. Okay, so pretty much excited for the third and the final session of building unofficial MLH Events API. Now, I say the final session because actually, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really means a lot. uh, okay, so now third and final session because we have actually done what? Okay, let me give you a recap for those who did not join the session previously. We went over to the MLH website. Let me just kill this music in the background. I Yeah. Okay, so we went over. So, what was the project about? I'm going to give you a quick overview. So, the project was basically that we went over to the MLH website, the events page, which you can find by going on mlh.io, hackathons, some hackathon, and on in the URL itself, you could actually switch that URL to, like, let's say 2021, and you'll reach the past events page. So this is where we started from. So from 2021, we went over to the website and we scraped data. Uh, Again, for the purpose of this particular session, this particular stream, I had taken explicit permission. So I don't know if that permission will be valid at the end of the session, after the end of today's session. But at any time you want, I think it's best to ask on Discord. So we went over to the MLH website. We went over to this class of event wrapper. We found what is common between these cards, and we found, oh, the event wrapper class, it exists on basically every card. So we focused on that. We pulled some data out of that. So we pulled out event name, event date, start date, end date, event location in the form of city and state. And we also pulled out, let's say, hybrid nodes. So these are the things that we pulled out from the data, scraped, you can say. Uh, though I feel it's very negative word, scraping the data. But yeah, that's what we did, frankly. So we have scraped the data. We stored it in CSV files. Then we wrote a function, a Python function, to convert the CSV files into a JSON file. Okay, which you see right here, right now. Okay, yeah, so that's all done and dusted. Now, at the end of my session 2, I was a bit hasty, because I thought there is another session was there after me, so I had to quickly end my session. So there is one pending task from that, from second session, that I have carried over to this third session. And finally we'll actually start building the API part. Okay, which basically means that all this effort that we did, uh, to get the data, now we'll create an API so that that particular data is visible to the whole world. So now, before I start with that part, I am going to do two things. Uh, the first thing is, remember I said that I kind of missed something. Like, in a hasty end, I forgot to show. Now, what was, like, forgot to show some stuff. What was the error like? The error was basically, I fixed it. So let me just remove it. And let me also do it for, let's say, just 2023. Okay, let me also remove these things. uh, so the error was that we added a ID field in the CSV files, and that ID field started from zero. Okay, so we manually added a ID field, but that ID field actually started from zero, which was a problem because no one naturally counts like how many events are there. So they'll start counting as, okay, one, two, three, four, natural number counting, and not a whole number counting. No one goes like, oh, event zero, event one, event two, event three. So we actually want our IDs to start from one, of course. And that is what we had kind of messed up. So as you can see, the code that we had written, it started ID from counting from zero, and we had to fix that. The fix was pretty simple. I did part of it, but then I did not really remember that much of Python. So the fix was that we can provide a start index. Okay. And here, at the place where we are doing the enumerate, we can actually do start equals to start index. Okay. Start is the uh, variable kind of that you have to manipulate to change the start index. So instead of starting from default 0, we want it to start from 1. So that is the variable that you need to manipulate. At the same time, you also have to go over to main.py, and this is where we had called our function. The function was write to CSV. There you have to provide start index, because now write to CSV takes three parameters. As you can see, when I hover over it, you can see that it takes three parameters. It takes the events data, which is coming from the new events data variable. It takes the CSV file name, which is coming from the new CSV file name. I know, so creative, right? And it takes a start index, which we are providing here as start index equals to 1. Okay, this is the default index that we are providing, and that goes over to our write to CSV function. And here it takes that start index that was provided by the user, and we pass that down here to the enumerate function, enumerate method, whatever it's called, and that's how it will get passed. That's how we will end up with ID, which will start from 1. Now I'm going to quickly showcase that to you. So let me just close a bunch of things. Let me also delete all the files that have been created till now. Why? Because I want a bigger merged MLH underscore events JSON. Okay, right now it's only for 2021, 22, 23, and even in that too, something or the other has been changed based on the code that we kept writing on the fly. So I am going to go over to our years list. Start from 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Perfect. I think this is good. Now, this line, I'm going to delete it for the time being. Clean code. Perfect. That's what we end up with. And now let's run this. What our code does, it goes over to the MLH website. It scrapes the data, then it pulls out a few things from that data. It pulls out event name, event date, start date, end date, location, hybrid nodes, event link, and then it writes the data that has come back into CSV files. So as you can see, it is creating the CSV files, and once the creation is done, it merges all the CSV files together into a merged MLH events JSON. Okay, that is the important aspect. We also saw what JSON means, and this is it. We have 777 events total. Okay, from 2021 to 2024 season, we have 777 events. At least that's like listed on the website. And here, as you can see, uh, now the ID starts from 1 for every event. ID starts from 1. So in the CSV files, we are not doing a continuation of ID. but when we merge it to JSON, we are doing a continuation of ID. I hope that like made sense a bit. Yep. ID 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Okie doke. So we got all the data, everything has been merged. Now let's move on to the fun part. The fun part is creating the API. So to create the API, we are going to use something called as fast API. Actually, before I share this in the chat, I forgot to share, I realized, the check-in link. Okay, so for folks who have not checked in for the final session, humble request, please do. I will share the check-in link in the chat. Okay, so the check-in link is in the chat. Very humble request, please do check in for the session. And now sharing the fast API link. Now the reason why I'm sharing the fast API link is because you can follow along the documentation, because yeah, I'm going to pick a bunch of stuff from the documentation, of course, and that's how we'll end up creating our API. Yeah. I wonder. Yeah. Yep. This is better, at least for me. I mean, dark mode is normally better, but I realize that whenever I stream with dark mode on from some website, my- everything just looks very dark. Okay. So let's go over to our REPL. Okay. Uh, I keep formatting it. I don't know why. Uh, Okay, so to use Fast API, okay, what is Fast API? We talked about what is an API previously. Now, Fast API is a modern, fast, high performance web framework for building APIs with Python 3.7 plus based on standard Python type hints. And it is very high performance on par with Node.js and Go. And like multiple things are there listed. You can definitely have a look at it. And now with Fast API, like the other alternatives, as far as I know, is uh, there's Django, but that is like a full-fledged framework. There's also another one. Does anyone remember the name? Because I just forgot. Seriously. So what does Python use? Flask. Yeah, Flask, right? Yeah, Flask is another one, which is one way to build Python APIs. Again, if I remember it right. And this is the third one. Now to create this API, I'm going to create a new file. Let's call it app.py. Yep. Now app.py, this is where we are going to add the code for the API. And step one is, let's go over here and let's see installation. So installation, you do a pip install and you can import Fast API like using these two lines. Line number one tells us to import from Fast API, import Fast API. And this is the initialization part. Okay, so I'm going to copy these two things. Okay, literally just these, copy paste it from here to our app.py. So that is the first thing that we have created. We have actually created, imported Fast API. We have initialized it. Now let's start creating some functions. Now the very basic, the most basic function is when we go over to the home page, which we don't know yet, like what it will look like. So whenever we go over to the home page, I want to do a app.get, and on the home page, that is the home route, uh, you can say it's just a slash. I'm going to create a function. Let's call it def get underscore home page. And it returns a string. What is the string going to be? Hello GHW. A fast API is good. You can, because you can define the response model saying that, hey, this particular API will return the response as a string. So I'm also going to add some comments here. Get request to return home page. I'm not going to add it for every, but yeah, just to show it to you. And what else? Let's go over to the fast API documentation. To run it, it is saying that run the server with this particular command. Okay, we can do that definitely. We'll come back to it. There's nothing else that's required. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to move over to the shell. Okay. If you have not used the shell part before, you can find it in the tools. So in the tools, if you scroll down or up or whatever, like wherever, you will find shell. Okay, listed. For me, it's here because it's alphabetically arranged. So shell is right there. So open the shell and the command is the uvcon. Yeah, uvcon main colon app, and with the reload being passed. So what is the main? So main is the file name, which is main.py. But for us, the file name is called as app.py, right? So if it is app.py, our code, our command to run it should look something like uvcon app colon app dash dash reload. And I'm just going to hit enter. Command not installed. Multiple versions of this command were found on next select one to run. Okay, this is confusing, so I'm going to just end it right there. And I'm going to do the next possible thing that I know is, let's check how do you install it. So you can install fast API like this, and you can install uvcon like this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this. Okay, copy this up, go over to our shell, paste it right there and hit enter. Why UVCon? That's what they have suggested, frankly. I did not really bother checking. Uh, they had suggested somewhere, I remember. Uh, yeah, you will also need a ASGI server for production, such as UVCon or HyperCon, and they've given the code for how to install UVCon. So I just went with that. Oopsie, oopsie. No, 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 no. Okay. So, yep, that's the first part. The next part was to install UVCon. So let's go over there, copy this, come back here, paste it, and let's hit enter. So it will look for something, get it, install it. Okay. So with that out, I'm going to just clear everything. Uh, Yep. Now let's go back. So the way it is supposed to run is UVCon, and instead of main colon app, we are going to do app colon app. So UVCon app colon app with the reload, kind of like a dynamic reload. Anytime you change a content here on the page on this app colon app.py, it is going to uh, change, reload itself. Now it, uh, at least for me, Replit is gave me a warning uh, that you're using local host kind of port 8000, but you can't open that port. Like if you click on it, it will say, oh, this is not found. Why is it not found? Because we are running inside the Replit container. So the way to resolve it is just shut that. uh, let's clear it again. We are going to do uvcon app colon app and with the reload function, but we are also going to define the host, and the host is going to be 0.0.0.0. And once you do that, it will bind this particular ip to the port ip. And the idea is, like, when you open it, you should see hello GHW. Okay, that is the bottom line for this whole thing that we wrote. Hello GHW is the output that you are supposed to see. uh okay, so bunch of messages. I'm sorry I missed that one. Yeah, installing all the packages and dependencies. Well, at least Replit is good about that part. Like, I'm answering this particular question that Replit is normally good because once you hit that big green button, it scans your code, and if there is any dependency, it is going to just install it for you, which is the best thing I like. uh Okay, there's a question. I've missed part two. Can I follow up and complete the project by watching the recap? Yes, you can. Definitely. You can. But if you have missed part two and you don't have that code right now, it is going to get slightly difficult because you won't have any data to return because you will be missing the merged MLH events.json. So the best way to resolve this situation would basically be I share my Replit link. So you can now make a fork of this particular code. Then you'll have everything that I have. So then you can follow along pretty quickly. But for the verbal intro or the verbal walkthrough of what we did in part two, please check out the MLH YouTube channel. Okay. There's another message. Can I summarize what is happening? So we are building MLH Events API by scraping MLH.io website, and we are using Python for that. Okay, so we have successfully made a request on the forward slash, and we received hello GHW. Let's go over to fast API. It says that if you here you can open your browser, and interestingly they also have something called as slash docs. We haven't written this endpoint, it is just available generally. So if you go to slash docs, you will see this is too big. Sorry, too big. Okay, you will see that whatever API endpoint you write, it will create a Swagger page. Okay, Swagger is, you can think of Swagger as Postman. Okay, Postman. Uh, if I hope you know Postman, but more of an interface to where you can send, get requests, check the responses, and all those things. An interface to send REST API requests and get the responses back. Okay, why are we using Fast API? Because I think it's very new and this would be a very good platform to definitely experiment with Fast API. That's why I kind of chose it. No hard and fast thing there. Okay, now, okay, this is still too big. Okay, now this looks good. So the endpoint that we wrote here, we can see that, okay, slash, it is the get home page. What is get home page? It just took this, and 200 is a successful response. It is not accepting anything. I click on the try it out, click on execute, and this is the response body. And it also gives the content length, content type, the server type, and XYZ stuff. Okay. So pretty cool, pretty good. And we are going to keep using this. So what you have to do, just add a slash docs at the end of whatever is the uh, URL. Okay. And what have we done? I should actually share the UVCon code too. So let me copy this and let me paste it in the chat. Okay, so the UVCon code to actually run your server has been pasted in the chat, so you can have a look at it. I'm also going to just drag this web view and attach it somewhere here. So the shell is bigger for us to see. Okay, it's too big, too big, too big. Okay, I think this should be good enough. Huh, I received a notification, it seems. I'm too curious right now, but I don't think whether I don't know whether it would be a good idea to open it right now. Uh, okay, so we have successfully created our first request, which is a GET request, a first REST API. Now let's create the second one. The second one that I want to create is going to be uh, at the rate app.get. Oh, where am I getting these syntaxes from? I literally saw all of them on Fast API. So app.get some other endpoint. So that's how you define what should the endpoint look like. Let me zoom in. Yep. So app.get slash app.get this. And when you start reading the documentation, you'll also find the response model that I was talking about. Uh, I mean, somewhere it is there. Trust me on that. Response model. Uh, yep, here. Response model item, response model list of item, and what is item? So you create a class item where you define what item would look like. So basically, the idea is response model uh, tells you what kind of data would be returned from this API. Okay, so now let's create the second request. Now for the second request, what I want is, I say what I want because I when I was creating, I thought you know these are the good endpoints that we will have. So the next one is going to be slash events slash, and the response model is going to be, so response underscore model is going to be a list. A list should be returned out of this. Now let's create that endpoint. So def will, where I'm calling slash events slash, which means that what I'm trying to do here is get all the events. So I'll create a function called as get all events. Now get all events, what should it do? It should return me, okay, it should ideally return me, and just ignore this part, this is just for understanding. It should return me the merged underscore MLH underscore events dot JSON. Okay, it should return me all the data that exists in this particular file. Now, for all the other APIs that we are going to create, we are going to need this like all events data again and again and again. So the best way to resolve that issue is, let's create a separate function for that. We will call it read or read merged MLH events. Now read merged MLH events function, what it is going to do, it is going to open a particular file which is merged underscore MLH underscore events.json that we had created here. It will open that file, but it will open that file in a read only mode. So that is why this double inverted commas are. It will open it in read only mode. Once it opens it in read only mode, we can give it a variable name. We can call it, let's say, temp JSON. You can call it anything. So this is just a variable name and temp JSON. And I'm saying that please, let's create a variable. Let's call it data, and data equals to JSON dot load the variable where all the where the file data is saved, and then finally return this data. Now here we need to use the like not use import the JSON. Now we have already added it to our code because we already had import JSON. So I'm going to just copy that and paste it here. So this is where we are importing the JSON. So what have we written? The code basically says that read merged MLH events file, MLH events.json file. And to read it, what it has to do is, it is pretty much syntax. And the syntax says that please open the JSON file in read only mode. Once you have opened it, give it a temporary variable name. And then we create a variable where we are loading all the data inside that file. And then we're finally returning it. So once we have this, what are we supposed to do? We just go down here and return read merged MLH events. So once we are done with that, it will say on the right hand side, if the server is running, it will show you that watch files detected changes in app.py, reloading, waiting for application startup complete. So once application startup is complete, you can go over to our slash docs, reload it, and get all events. It exists. Let's try it out. Execute. And it returns me all the data. That is what I wanted. That was the goal. Okay, do we have 777 data? Yep, we do. Okay, so we have all the data come back. Congratulations, you have created the second API, which was to read all the data. Let's clear this. Let's cancel this. So now we have two APIs, one to get the home page, one to, uh, you know, query slash events. Now there is a suggestion. We could just return json.load open merge.json in read mode. Uh, yes, definitely. But created the function because I'm going to use that function multiple times. So that is the first thing. Second thing, opening it, like writing a shorthand code, definitely I would love it. And if you have not joined my stream previously, I always put my code on GitHub where I encourage people to please create a pull request. I'm not writing the best of code right now. I'm just writing uh, code which would work so that people get an idea. But if you have better code, definitely, which is easy, understandable, and if you could improve what I have written, please open a pull request. Like, very humbly, I would request you to please open a pull request. That ways you can contribute uh, to the repository. People who are new to this ecosystem, they can go through the code. They'll, if they stumble across the GHW repository that I've created on GitHub, they can look over through the code, gloss over it, they'll have a better code. Okay. So very humble request that, if this is easy, shorthanded, and it works for all the case scenarios that we are going to do right now, please open a pull request and update it. Okay. So thank you so much for it. I really appreciate it. And but I would genuinely uh, request that please open a PR. I keep saying please open a PR, but you don't know what's the link to my GHW repository. So let me share that. Uh, if I could just find it, give me one moment. Yep, there it is in the chat. I I recently had closed like a few pull requests from unfiled 6748. Okay, the person has created some pull requests. They have changed. They have given some better code definitely, and yeah, I think very good option to create your own. Okay. Okay, doke. Moving along. So we created a function where we are now returning all the MLH events. Now, what are the other things that we can create? Like, what are the APIs that we can create? So when we create an API, now what is going to happen? If you could just pass this particular link, okay, to anyone, and if your server is up and running, they can actually query your endpoint and get all the data back, right? So okay, I just realized that I'm not showing exactly. Now I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to open incognito here, and I'm curious, would it be visible? Yes, it is. It will be visible. Now I'm going to share this link. Okay, and I'm going to also share this link in the chat. Since my server is up and running, you should be able to see the same homepage that I am looking at right now. And you can actually experiment with it, right? You can just try it out, execute. You should get all these things that I am getting here right now. So that is the whole idea of the API. You give the power to someone when your server is up and running. That's the most important part. To query your endpoint and get data, and then they can build anything that they want. It applies to you too. Once we have created this API and we complete creating this API, not exactly complete, but some bare minimums that we can add, then you can query your own API endpoint, get all the merged MLH events JSON data, and you can create your own front end out of it. I've done ton of React, uh, what React, React GHW streams. So you could just build your own UI for MLH events. You could uh, just collect other events that are happening on maybe some other websites if you can find it, and if it is legal. Okay, that's the disclaimer here. If it's legal uh, to scrape the website, get all the data, merge it together, create your own website where you can showcase all these events that have happened in the past or that are upcoming in the future. So yeah, with that in mind, what are the other API endpoints that we can create? So the next I would like, now we are dealing here with some historical data as well as some current data. So if we are dealing with historical data, I want a API to return me all the events that have happened in a particular year. Okay. So I want all the data of the events that happened in the year 2020 or 2021 or 2022 or 2023. Now, if you see our merged MLH events, we have a field which is called as year, which we had added. So the job is pretty simple. Let's create a app.get. We can call it as, like, what will be the endpoint called? The slash events slash year and slash, I put year here. Ah, tongue twisters again. And the response that is going to be response model that will be given at the end of this would be again a list. Oh, we did not see what's the response model for the last one. So when I say it's a list, you can think of it as array of objects. Okay. Okay. I don't think it will run. Yeah, because our code is broken right now. So let's continue it. So def get events by year. That's what it would be. But now this is going to accept a parameter. Now what, like, that is what this curly brackets and the variable name means. It means that the user will give a input, kind of, or when this event is, when this API is being called, it will be called as the base URL slash events slash year slash, in place of curly brackets it will be replaced with a year that the user is going to provide: 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, whatever. So they are going, the user is going to provide this. So let's now write the code for it. So, and the year is going to be an integer. So that's why colon int. So all events. So let's first read all the events. So to get all the events, we just call this particular function, right? So that's the first bit. Let's read all the events. Now we have to filter the events. So filtered events. Also, let me kind of warn you that it, okay, let, like, ignore me. Once we reach that stage, we will resolve the problems. So let's return a list. Since we are going to return a list, or in Java, if you're coming from JavaScript world, array, that is why it is inside an array. So event for event in all underscore event. Okay, is anyone trying to kind of sabotage my code? Okay. So event for event in all underscore events, and this event basically means that, return the event now, and this part is a for loop, okay, where this is a variable. So return that particular variable where we, when we loop over the all events that is coming from here, and when you are looping over it, only return the event of year. Now all events is going to be a dictionary, okay, array of objects or a list of dictionaries, because that is how a JSON looks like. It's a list of dictionaries. So we are saying that take this particular key. So this particular line or this particular term here means event of square bracket year, means take out the particular key called as all caps, like, not all caps, year, and if it is equal to the year provided by the user. So I'm also going to do one thing. User underscore year comes, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to say user underscore year, and I'm also going to call this user underscore year. Okay. Does it ever happen with you that you write a spelling so many times, it starts feeling wrong? At least it's happening for me. Year. Wrote it so many times. Now I'm confused whether it's the right spelling or no. So yeah. So we are now we used some shorthand here. Here, like for you can break this code into multiple parts. The first part is for loop. So for event in all events, if event of square bracket year, which means in the object, in a individual object or in an individual dictionary, find the key which is this and match or check if it matches to the year provided by the user year, and if it does, please return that particular uh, variable, and it's in the list, so there will be multiple, and finally we will return the filtered events. Okay, that's the final part. Now let me just click on this format. It has nicely formatted it. Let's And it has also, it worked for so much time that it broke the server. So I'm going to oh man, UVcon. What was the code for UVcon? I remember sharing it in the chat. UVcon app colon app, UVcon app colon app, dash dash reload, dash dash host 0.0.0.0. Let it get started. Once it has started, we can, yeah, just remove all the extra bits from this URL of docs and just keep the docs. Yeah, and there we have it. Okay, now let's try it out. 2021, execute. It got me data of 2021. Okay, I am scrolling all the way to the bottom. Yep, only the data of 2021 has been returned. 2023, it starts from uh, yeah, ID 457, year 2023. So it starts from there and it goes all the way to 727, year 2023. 2025, let's see, nothing has been returned. It's an empty list. Okay, so for 2025 nothing has been returned, it's an empty list. So that means at least our code works, at least for now. What is the problem currently? We don't have a very good error handling happening. It's not exactly giving out the error that, hey, no events found for this particular year, or some proper error that should be returned is not happening. So we will also resolve that aspect. Now, what else? Can I quickly give you all a mini homework here? I'm going to kind of wait, create a very similar API, but instead of giving back, or if instead of asking the user for the year, ask the user for ID. You can call it as user underscore ID. And I would say I'll give you at least one part, which would be slash ID slash user underscore ID. Okay, so for this particular piece of endpoint, please create a function that returns all the data where the ID matches. Okay, so I'll take a pause here. Should be very simple. I'll take a pause for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Once you're done with the code, I'd love to see it. So let me know if you could paste it in the chat. Or if not, if you're not able to resolve it or solve it, just let me know and we're definitely going to do it. Okay. Any questions, anyone? I think it's a good time to ask. I- And I think there's a mistake here. Like I shouldn't call it user ID. I can call it as event ID. That would be. And yeah, event here. Yeah, this looks better. Definitely. Okay, this silence is very much killing it. Before doing the user ID, we need to know if the events captured the unique user ID. Uh, yes, it is unique because we actually manually added it. Okay, so in part one, two, I think, yeah, in part two, we actually wrote the code to increment the ID. So we manually added the ID through this piece of code, which is why the ID is going to be unique for sure. Oh, it's all right. I'm just like, uh, yeah, defining that, and it was a valid question definitely, because if you look at the CSV, ID 1 2 is repeated across all the CSVs, but when we created the merged MLH events JSON, we actually incremented the ID based on like the whole thing. Like, yeah, I hope it makes sense. I kept saying like yeah twice. But I hope yeah you get the idea. Come on. Okay, Doc, I think that was long enough time, definitely. If you have solved it, well and good. If you have not, let's do it together. Now, the best way, or kind of the easiest slash laziest way to do it is copy this particular thing. Okay, we can copy this function. We're going to rename it, don't worry. So get events by ID, we can call it that. And here, instead of event year, we'll say event ID. And all events, we still need all events. Now we need the filter event, where again the filter is going to be pretty simple. Event for event in all events if event of ID. Okay, so the key here is ID, both in capitals. So if event ID matches the event ID that was provided by the user, so return that particular data, right? So, and finally we return the filtered events. Since our server was running properly, I'm going to just reload this page, and there we have this. Now let's try it out. I am going to provide like 4 to 5 as the number. And as you can see, it returned me exactly one event. Okay. What if I give it like 888? Empty. So again, we need to raise a proper exception, or at least give a very clear error message, which is missing, but we'll come to it. So now we have created actually three APIs. What's the fourth API? The fourth API that I would love to create is get event in a date range. Okay. The user would provide a start date, the user would provide a end date, and the API should get all the events that are between that particular date range. Okay, cool. So let's do that. Again, at the rate, yeah, at the rate app dot get, sorry, at the rate app dot get slash events slash, we can call it date dash range. Okay, now I'm not going to do a slash of like start date and then a slash of end date or something. I'm going to, if you don't give anything but you're still providing parameters, it goes into query params. We will have a look at it right now. And the response model is going to be a list, of course. So kind of copy pasting it here. So response model list, and this is the API endpoint, that this is how it is supposed to be called. Now get underscore events by date range. And this takes in two things. So we can call it event underscore start underscore date, which is supposed to be a date. Okay, it's not supposed to be a int, it's not an integer number, it's not supposed to be a string, it is supposed to be a date. Okay, a proper date format. And it will also take event underscore uh, end date, which is again supposed to be a date format. Now we have defined our function. Step one is going to be very similar, kind of repetitive now. Get all the events. Okay, we got the first error. It is saying that undefined name date. Like you're saying something called as date. What is date? Okay, it's not an integer. What's happening? Okay, let me just copy this whole thing and let me do a hard refresh. Okay, connected, everything's working. Okay, so it is the first error that we are getting is you are saying that the event start date is going to be of type date, but I don't know what is type date. Integer is built in, str, that is string, is built in, but date is not built in. So we are supposed to import it. So from date time, I think it's date time like this, import date. So from date time, import date, and you also import date time. Yeah. So from date time, import date and import date time. Now at least the first error is gone. Like it now understands what date means. Let's move on to the next bit, which is okay. We have now taken all the data, and now let's create the filtered events. Now filtered events, I'm again going to, yeah, this was the problem that I said ignore it for now. All my events variable that I'm creating inside individual functions, I'm going to call it filtered events. So please don't get confused. So for this, the first line is going to be similar kind of event for event in all events. Now this is where the second part is going to happen. If, okay, the condition is if, remember we imported two things at the top. One was date, which was being used here to define the type. The second was date time. This is where we are going to use it. If date time dot from ISO format. Okay. Date time dot from ISO format, as the name suggests, like it basically checks for the ISO for construct a date time from the output of ISO format, converts into a ISO format, the international format. And here we are going to say that event of, which is this particular variable, event of start date. Okay. So event of start date means get the start date, which exists in our JSON. So get that particular uh, key and do a dot date on it to convert it to into a proper date format. If it is greater or equal to, so get the key start date for each of these dictionaries or each of these objects, and check if it is greater than or equal to the event start date and, okay, now we are doing a boolean operation here, and date time dot from ISO format event of end date. Okay, so event of end date converted to a dot date format if it is less than or equal to event end date. Now this event end date coming from the user, this event of end date is coming from this object or dictionary. Here it is. So greater than or equal to the user given event start date and less than or equal to the user given event end date, get all the data in that range. And why we are doing this dot date? Because if you see here, it is in string. Okay, so that is why we are converting it to a date. Get all that data, and then let's just return filtered filtered underscore events. Now I'm going to format it. Yeah, this looks much better and much readable. So event for event in all events, if the date time dot from ISO format convert the event of start date into a date format, and if it is greater than the user given and less than the user given, then you return all that data. So now, since I had reloaded very conveniently, I'm why did I say very conveniently? I don't know. So Ubicon app colon app dash dash reload dash dash host of 0.0.0.0 and hit enter. Let it load. Startup complete. Let's go over to Fast API. Let's reload this page. Now we got the date range. Now we can give it the date range. Let's say I want it from 2023 dash March of, let's say, 16th and end till like March of 23. Okay, 23rd March 2023, 16th March 2023. Execute. There was only one event that happened on 17th, from start from 17th, ended on 19th. Okay, only one. Let's change this to April. So the end date is like till 23rd of April. Find all the events that happened between 16th March and 23rd April. And we have some more data. The last one is actually 23rd of April, and the first one is 17th of March. So it returned me all the data between that particular date range. So successfully created another endpoint. And remember, I was talking about query strings or query parameters. So since we did not explicitly do that curly brackets and put the user value there, what this Fast API did very smartly, it added a question mark, event start date equals to this and event end date equals to this. So query params, query strings, I think they're called both. So it added it in the URL itself. Okay, now if I take this URL, open a new tab, paste it there, you can actually find like all the data that is coming back. Also, I want to test one more thing. Yeah. So even if I remove this slash, okay, this forward slash, this extra forward slash, hit enter, it still works. So how do I know it still works? Let's say if I change this to 23rd and I also remove this extra forward slash after range, it automatically adds it and it returns me the data that we had seen previously. Okay. Any reason for doing that? Because just wanted to test it, frankly. So, yep, that's is the next thing that we have created. Congratulations to all of us. We have created a slightly difficult one. Now, the next bit is going to be uh, what should I create? I'm actually confused. Event name. Let's get data by providing event name. The user should provide the event name, and it should return me the event where the name matches. So, and this time, instead of doing a get request, oh, apparently my internet is being an issue, which is why it kept doing whatever it was doing. Okay, so coming back. So now instead of doing a get request, we should do a post request. So let's create a post request. But since post request is going to be a lengthier thing, I think we have already completed an hour of this session. Let's take a break right now. Okay. And we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Okay. Before I go on the break, sorry. Any questions, anyone? Take five. Yep, let's take five. Okay, doke. I'm going to mute myself and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay. Hello, I'm back. Let's cut off this music and let's continue. The banner, the banner. I'm here, I'm here. Okay, so the next one I was going to show you a post request. Now, this particular endpoint not doesn't really require a post request. A get request should be fine enough. But just to show it to you how it's done, I am going to write a post request. So the post request was to the endpoint to get the data if a user provides the event name. Okay. So we can call it as at app dot post. There's patch and put also. Yeah. Post slash events slash event dash name. And what is the response going to be? The response is going to be a list. So, yep, copy pasted that part definitely. And let's create the function get event, not get actually. Actually, get event by name. Post event by, what should I call this? Okay, post event by name. I think that's weird. We are getting the data. Sorry, confusion. Ignore that particular confusion. Event name. Okay. Now, event name is going to take what? It is supposed to take a string. So let's do a string. And then, again, repetitive code here, take this, paste it here, all the events, let's say now filtered events equals to, so filtered events equals to, and what is the filter supposed to do? So the filter is supposed to uh hmm, I'm thinking, what is it supposed to do? It is supposed to take the event name, of course. So let's try it the way we have done for everything. Okay, let's copy this ID line and let me paste it here. But instead of ID, now it should be event name. Okay, so event name, and here instead of event ID, it would be event name that is requested by the user. Looks fine, I think. Okay, we just need to return this. So return filtered underscore events. Yeah, I think looks good. Let me see if I can restart the server. Just keeps crashing. Uh, should copy paste it actually this time. Okay, so the server has started and let's go over to our docs. No, not that, this one. Yep. Oops. From default, let's delete everything. Let's reload. Reload. So big. 300%. What am I doing at 300%? And post request looks different, definitely, right? And this, and let's do a try it out. And here I say, what is the event supposed to be? Let's say the first one, hackation. So I pass that, I execute, and it returned me the data. Okay, pretty simple, right? If I pass, let's say just hack, it is not going to return me anything. And here, as you can see, the request URL, it is actually appending it in query params, which I don't want. The event name should go into the body of this endpoint. So a user will hit this endpoint, and in the body of the request, when I say a body of the request, what I mean is, let me see. I don't remember a website where I can show you a quick post request right now, but yeah, the in the post request, it should not add it as a query string, which it is doing right now. It should go into the body. So what needs to change? Our code is wrong basically. So what needs to change? So the first thing that needs to change is this event name rec. Okay, so if I go over to the fast API documentation and let me search for a post request. What's happening to this one? Post, post, Postgres. Why am I getting Postgres? So weird. But should have searched for it. Should have searched for it previously. Okay, no worries. We since I've worked on it, so I'll tell you. So this thing here, instead of doing it directly as a string, we are going to pass a class here. Oh, do you remember the class part? I think if I find the class, yep. Yeah. So this put is kind of similar to what I am talking about. Like, we are going to define a class, a model. Okay, class of, like, they have defined class item, which is a base model, and they have imported a base model from this pydantic import base model. But yeah, we are going to define a class. Inside the class we are going to define something, and that is what we are going to pass. So the way they have passed item to capital item, we are going to do something very similar, and we are going to basically define a class where we are going to say that, okay, this is the key going to be, this is the value supposed to be, and that will ensure that the request goes as a part of the body. So where are we going to define it? We can define it just above this one so that it's easily readable. So we can call it as event name request model, and that takes the base model, and here inside it we will say it will take event name actually, which would be a string. Okay, now this base model, if you remember, we imported from pydantic. Okay, so from pydantic we import that, we return filtered events. Let's see if this works. So application startup complete. Let me just reload this. Let's go here. Doesn't look like it that it worked. Did we need to install pydantic? Hmm. Again, doesn't look like it. uh okay, this works. Slash docs, that thing works. ABC still going in here. Why is it going in there? What's the problem again? Hmm. Okay, interesting. Let's. Okay, I understood why it's going there. I'm still defining here it as string. It should actually be this base model that we have created, right? So now event name rec is this thing. Okay, now let's reload this. Yeah, now there's a difference. If you remember, now there's no more that particular box. Okay, now let's click on try it out. It is asking for event name, which goes in the request body right now. Okay, previously it was query string here at least. Now it goes into request body, and now let me give it the name that it is supposed to return, like hackation, and right here, and let's click on execute. Okay, this time the URL is perfectly fine the way we want it, and in the data it is taking the event name as hackation, but it's still not able to find it. Why is that? The reason is we are comparing it with event name requested, but the actual event name is inside it. Okay, so if I do a dot event name, maybe let's give it a try now. So let me reload. Okay, try it out. Let's just pray that it works. And yes, it does. Okay, so we have successfully created a post request. All right, now question, it isn't it different than get to post APIs are hard. Yeah, I know. They are really. But once you have created one of them, it becomes very similar to create more of them. The way we did it for get. Now, once you know how to get by ID and get by year, now you can get by event name. You know how to get by, let's say, what are the other fields? Start date, get by end date, get by location, if it explicitly matches this. Get by event link, if someone provides event link, get by nodes. You can create multiple of them, which brings me to the next very interesting part, which is, as I said, if the name explicitly matches, then and only then our response is like we'll have a successful response. But what if someone remembers GHW? They don't remember anything around it. Like, let's say I want to get all the events where the name matches GHW. What am I supposed to do at that part? How should I handle that particular situation where I remember that, okay, the event name will have GHW somewhere, but I'm not sure what would be around that. Would there be a colon data week? Would there be a dash data week? Would there be a colon security week? I don't know. So let's create a request to actually first do a partial match. Okay, let's do a partial match to the uh, string that the user has entered. You need a loop function? Yes, we would need a loop function, definitely, but we also need to do a partial match. Okay, that's the important aspect to this. So let's create another post function. Okay, why post function? Because we have kind of already created it. I'm going to copy this whole thing, paste it here, but now events slash partial slash event name, or more like actually event slash event name slash partial. Okay, Response model is still going to be a list. Get event by partial name. We can call it this. Takes the same thing. First, let's read it. And now the filter. Now this filter function, I'm going to create a new filter function. Okay. Why a new function? Because I want it to be reusable later. So I'm going to explicitly create a new filter function, which we'll call as def filter underscore events underscore by underscore partial underscore match. Okay. And what would it take? It would take all events. Okay. It will take all the events data. It will take the field name, which like here the field name is event of event colon event name. Here the field name was event of event not colon square bracket start date event of end date. So the field name, and it will also take the value. Okay, and let's create filtered events equals to would return a list, of course. Let's loop over as Shamari suggested. We need a loop function. So let's loop over event for event in all events if this is very interesting and very easy actually. If the value dot case fold in event of the field dot case fold, then return the filtered spelling mistake. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. Return the filtered events. And let's format this. Okay, what is this case fold? Do you think it is going to solve our problem? Okay, Replit has decided not to show me the hints. But let's see if this solves our problem. So we have defined, oops, where did that? Yeah. So we have defined a function where we are saying, oh, this will return me all the names by partial match, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if it does actually. Okay. Sorry. So, yeah, what's the next step going to be? Now, when the place where we are reading the event and we are actually doing the filter, in that case, now in this place, I'm going to call the function that we created, the filter events by partial match. And step one, it takes the all events. All events is this one. What's the next thing it takes? It takes the field. Uh, I want the field is supposed to be event name. And the third thing it is supposed to take is the value. The value is going to be the user requested value, which is this dot this. And let's try this. Okay, let's go over. Let's reload. Let me remove all this. Okay, where is it? Why does it keep running away? Oh, I forgot the at the rate. No wonder it was not showing up. I was like so curious. Why is it not showing up? Why is it not showing up? Yep, there it is. So event name partial, let's try it out. Told you that there is something called as GHW. Let's execute, and it worked. Okay, it worked. The case fold. Now let's quickly search Python case fold. It returns a string where all the characters are lowercase. So the case fold is not exactly doing the magic. Then what is doing the magic? So case fold just basically lowercase is everything. The magic is instead of equals to, the in is doing the magic. Okay, so we are not doing an explicit match with equals to, double equals to. We are saying that if the term that the user has entered, if that term exists in the lower case of, like, the if the value or lowercase exists in the data, append it to the list. Okay, append the whole object to the list, and that worked. So yeah, I think I kind of misdirected you all by saying that, oh, we need to do a case fold. We are just doing a in. Okay, the in is what is doing the magic here. Okay, so yeah, that is it right now, at least for this one. Now what's the next step going to be? Now you have learned how to create the partial. Okay, how to filter by partial matches. uh there is also one more thing which I know, because I was working on this. We have GHW, and it says that GHW init happened 2022, and then there's GHW AI ML week 2023, GHW Social Good Week, GHW API Week, GHW Games Week, Security Week, Launch Week. We are currently in Data Week. Why is that not here? Curious. Okay, I'm doing an acting here. I'm trying to, but I know why it's not there. Let's say Global Hack Week, and let's search for that. There's Global Hack Week October. Now you see Global Hack Week Share, Global Hack Week September, Global Hack Week Data, the one that we are currently in right now. So you see the discrepancy. The discrepancy is that there are two types of event names. Some places we have GHW, some places we have Global Hack Week. And think of it from a perspective of a user. Okay, GHW too famous, so maybe they'll try to query for GHW, but they'll only get partial data. Maybe they'll try to query for Global Hack Week. Again, they'll get only partial data. How can we ensure that they get all possible data about, let's say, GHW? Current event not passed. Current event not passed. Can we fork your code? Yeah, please feel free. Uh, okay, so coming back. Oh, okay, no problem. So yeah, coming back. Yeah, as I was saying, how can we ensure that a user gets all the GHW related data? So if you see here, we have one, two, three, four, five, six objects or dictionaries being returned. Now, the way I resolved this problem is by changing the data itself. And since we are doing some coding here, I am definitely not going to update the names of the fields manually. We are going to create a function to do that. Okay, of course we are going to create a function. Come on, we'll call it as update name dot py. Okay, update name dot py. we are going to import JSON because we are going to change the name only in JSON. Like at least for this part of code, we are going to change it only in the JSON. So def update underscore name, it will take the input file. Okay, what is the input file? What should be the output file that it should generate? What should be the search term that it should search for? And what should be the replacement term? So we are kind of creating a search and replace. Okay, search and replace function. So with that on, like, now that we understand what we are doing, let's write that function. Now with open, step one is input underscore file. Open it in a read mode as JSON file. This is a temporary name that we are giving it. And then we are saying that data equals to JSON.load the JSON underscore file, the temp file. Now this code is pretty much similar to what we wrote somewhere. Yeah, here. Okay. To load the file. Now, once we have loaded the file, okay, now let's write a for loop. So for event in the data, which is here, for event in data, why am I calling it event? You can call it I, like for all I care. Uh, for event in data, if the search term, if the search term in, okay, now interestingly, we are using in. So we are not doing an exact match, we are doing a partial match. So if it is in event of event name, then let's first print the old name. Old name is going to be the event of event name, of course. So let's print the old name. Now let's also do event of this particular event name. Please change that. So to change that, take that value and then replace. Okay, dot replace. So take this key. Okay, take this key and replace the value of that particular key with, like, for replace you give it like search term comma replacement term. Now let's print the new name. And let's also add some enter so that it looks good. And okay, so we have written the code to loop over it. So if for event in data, if search term and event of event name, then this is the magic code which is actually going to do the replacement. And now with open, where do we output it? So we can create, remember we took output file as one of the inputs from the user, and it is going to open in write mode as JSON output, again a temporary variable name, and JSON dot to write to the JSON file, you can use JSON dot dump, write the data. Okay, write the data JSON output and indent equals to 2 for the indentation. Okay, so we are dumping all the data, but at the same time, if that data has been replaced, we'll also add that in as the JSON output, in the JSON output. So the JSON output is going to change. Perfect. Now, how do we run this? Now, I don't want to click on the run button and run it. Okay. Let me show you a way to run a particular file. And it's pretty simple. This thing is, you do a if underscore underscore name equals to underscore underscore main underscore underscore. Then at that time, yeah, let's provide the input file name right here. So input file name is going to be the merged MLH events.json. The output file, we'll create a new output file. Okay. Why? Because I don't want to kind of corrupt the original data that we have. So we can call it output, or let's more like updated MLH events dot json, and it needs a search term. So please search for this particular terminology or this particular word called as GHW, and the replacement term, it should replace that with global hack week. And now let's call our function update name with input. So the input file is input file name. The output file is this output file name. The search term is going to be the search term. The replacement term is going to be replacement term that we have written here. Okay. Let's say search, let's call it my search term and my replacement term. So just to show you that which variable are we putting here. Okay, I think that should be good. Let me just format it quickly. Very nice, very nice. Let me shut this. Okay, and let me also do a clear. Now, how do we run this code? Like, I only want to run this update underscore name dot py. So to run it, you do a Python update underscore name dot py. So if I do this, it runs it, and you can see it is pretty quick, like really quick. Old name was GHW in it. Now it is called as Global Hack Week in it. GHW AI ML Week is now Global Hack Week. This is this, this is this, this is. So these are the names that have been changed. Can we quickly go over, like let's rerun our UVCon, and now we are going to query again. So this time we should have more data. Okay. And no data for GHW probably, I guess, and more data for Global Hack Week. Okay, let's open this up, try it out. Let's first search for GHW, the term GHW. Oh, wow. Like you must have realized my mistake here. My mistake is we created a new updated MLH events JSON, right? But we are not using that in our code here in the partial match. So what should we do? Well, a very simple way is let's copy paste this, okay, and partial dash updated. That's the new endpoint. Get event by partial name underscore updated. And here in all events, instead of read merged MLH events, which is what we are doing, that is reading the merged MLH events, I can copy paste this to read updated merged underscore MLH underscore events. What's the name of the file right now? The new file name is updated underscore this. Oops, extra spacing and sorry, extra inverted commas came in. So I've removed that, and yeah, everything else should remain the same. Now I'm going to call this function being like this, read updated MLH events, and everything else should be the same. Let me format it nicely. And that, now let on the right hand side it shows that this server is reloading, application startup complete. Let me remove all this, just click on enter to reload it. Now we have get event name partial updated, blah blah blah. Let's search for GHW and execute it. Yep, that's empty because there's nothing called as GHW anymore. Okay, but if I search for global hack week, this time if I execute it, global hack week share, init, September, October, December, AI ML week, social good week, API week, games week, security, basically every possible thing that should be there or can be there, we have it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Again, we have created the basics of the API by scraping the data. We have created uh, you know partial matching, we have created complete matching, we have, yeah, done loads of stuff, frankly. uh, we now know how to make a get request with like exact matching. We now know how to do a post request with exact and partial matching. You can also make a get request where it does some partial matching. We also now know how to, like, get data between a range. Okay, the final thing that is missing in the last 10 minutes that I have left is the uh, exception part. Okay, how do we raise good exception? So for that part, if you remember from fast API import fast API, we can also import something called as HTTP exception. Now let's use this exception. So where all, so here, like in the event, in the get request of getting the event year, if let's say there's no data for the year, like someone searched for 2025, 2026, or 2030, let's say, if there is no data returned, then we can say if not filtered underscore events. So if not, basically says that if this data does not exist, raise HTTP exception. In the HTTP exception, you can define it as it says here. You can define the status code. Okay, so status underscore code. You can say since it's not found, you can say that it is 404. If you remember, we had seen on MDN docs, like these are the uh, agreed upon HTTP response codes. So if it is successful response, you give between these. If it's a client error, then you give something like between four, in the range of 400s, and 404 is not found. The server cannot find the requested resource. It cannot find the data that you have asked for. And we can also give a detail here. Detail is nothing but a string response that the user should get. So event not found for the specified year. Very nice, easy to understand, succinct message right here. Now, so now if we let it reload, okay, yep, Now let's go back to our Swagger, which what did we update? We updated the year one, right? The get off events by event year. Now here in this, if I say please add 2026 and execute, it says error. Response status is 404. Detail event not found for the specified year. So now you know how to raise a HTTP exception, right? The idea remains the same. Like for any other exception here, if it is not found, you raise the HTTP exception of status code 404 and give the detail to the user, show it to the user. Okay, doke. What else? Any particular thing that you think I have missed? I think one thing that can be improved definitely is the filter events by partial match. So filter events by partial match, it converts everything to lowercase and it checks whether this word, which whatever the user has entered, exists in the object or in the dictionary. Now, we can also do one more thing. We can filter events by partial match and without any special characters. Okay, like basically removing all the special characters from the data. So, in that case, if let's say someone enters a comma or a dash or a space in the name of the word, it will remove all of that and still match it properly. So what I mean is like, let's clear this one, let's cancel this one, partial updated one. Okay, let's try it out. Here I'm saying global hack WEEK. So I've added spaces and between this I'm going to add a dash. So ideally, well, this would not match because, well, it's not found. Okay, there is no event which is like this bad, which was named this bad. But I think the best thing would be like, can we write a function where it removes all these special characters like a space, dashes, commas, convert everything to lowercase and still match it. Now there's a message when you're building an API, it's okay to test it in the way you have showing us and assume it will work on the client side too. Good question actually. I would say yes and no. Okay. Uh, yes, because specifically for let's say get request, once you have added the filter events the logic to filter the event, and once you have raised exception for anything that's not found, that seems like the job has been done. And normally from the client side, they will always send a request with the year in the URL, and you have handled all the situation there. What you have not handled, what are the things that you have not handled? What if they try to send in a string in the year instead of a number? So I don't think that has been handled properly. The user should get a notification for that, uh, message for that. What if they try to do what if the network fails? Okay, the client has sent a request, you are supposed to send a response but your server is down. In that case, you need to send a 500 internal server error probably. uh, let's go here, yeah, server error response, internal server error. So server has encountered a situation it does not know how to handle. You know, it was trying to run the code to filter out, and there was an internet drop, or not internet drop, but more like a connection drop, and server was not able to resolve or find the filtered event, and then it became available again, but yeah, in between it was not able to, or more like you can think of it as service unavailable. It's not ready to handle the request. Common causes are server is down for maintenance or it is overloaded. So I think these are the scenarios that you need to keep in mind while you're testing it, and all these scenarios possibly can happen from the client side also. So yeah, it's more of like probably the things that we have done, the way we have tested it, should work 90% of the times. The 10% cases would be edge cases, which actually, until and unless you face it, you wouldn't know. So, with that in mind, I think this is the perfect time to take a pause, take a break, end this. I hope you all enjoyed this session. That is the most important aspect of all the sessions that I do. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you build upon this project in the future. So, with that done, thank you so much, everyone. See you all later in the next GHW probably. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to ping me on Discord. Thank you so much. Really means a lot to me. And as always, I always pitch this. Please, 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 if you have something that you can improve in the code, send a pull request on my GitHub. Okay, I'm going to put this code. I have not put this code yet. I'm going to put it on GitHub, and I would request you all to please send a PR when you can improve it. I'll add some comments. I'll also do the filtration with special characters being taken out from the string and all that. I'll also add that code. But if you think anything can be improved, please, please, please send a pull request. Okay, help develop your profile too, definitely. Okay, doke. Thank you so much, everyone. You've been such a lovely people, encouraging me while I was making mistakes. So thank you so much. See you all later. Bye bye.